Hello everyone, this is Paradox 2767, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about the absolute best episode ever of The Simpsons, namely Bart Sells His Soul from Season 7. You heard that right. In my opinion, this is the all-time best Simpsons episode, and today I thought I'd talk a little bit about why. So join me in grabbing a beer or a root beer or whatever else you like to drink, and let's get right into it. Now, I'm a longtime Simpsons fan, and I have some pretty good memories watching this episode with my sister when we were younger, but even recently when I showed it to my wife for her first time, I found myself laughing it literally out loud at least once or twice a minute at all the different funny gags in this episode. Besides that, there's a bunch of philosophical angles that the episode explores that also kept it very entertaining throughout. So I thought I'd just digest it a little bit with you. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those people who says all the early Simpsons episodes are best and anything new is total garbage. In fact, personally, as me and my wife have been reviewing a lot of The Simpsons lately, I've really been enjoying a lot of the newer stuff, and frankly, I feel like some of the later seasons are just as or even more entertaining than some of the very first seasons. For instance, I actually find myself more entertained watching an episode from season 30 than I do watching an episode from season 2. So it's not as though just because this one's from early Simpsons, I felt it deserved this all-time ranking. There's a few other reasons besides just that. Now, Bart Sells His Soul has two main sort of storylines. One is about, of course, Bart selling his soul to his good friend Milhouse, simply writing down Bart Simpson's soul on a piece of letter-headed First Church of Springfield paper and handing it over to his friend for $5. And as the episode progresses, he realizes there are some serious implications to handing over such a precious part of himself so wantonly. Besides that, we're treated to a hilarious side plot about Moe turning the bar into a family-friendly restaurant. I think it's a hilarious subplot, and honestly, when I think of the character Moe, one of the first things that comes to mind is his family restaurant scheme. So let's get right into it. Now, one thing I liked about this episode is its relatability, I think, across the board, regardless of your religion. Because even though Bart sells his soul to a fellow church-going Christian friend of his, I really think that they drive home the importance of a soul to people in general, not just in a Christian light. Even Milhouse says how the soul is relevant to every religion, and later on Lisa's referencing all these other philosophers, how some of them think that you have to earn a soul, all these other different ideas that aren't specific to Christianity. So I really feel this episode was very relatable to a wide audience. Now, Bart has a pretty typical modern take on religion in general, I feel like, especially for younger people. He doesn't really put much stake in his soul, and he's happy to sell it for $5. But at the same time, as the episodes progress and you see all these ways that his soul has actually been removed from his body, and those stakes keep it pretty entertaining throughout. There's all these examples where Bart's having to deal with not having a soul. The dog growls at him, his cat hisses, Apu's automatic door won't open for him, he has no breath when he's trying to pull a prank on a pane of glass, an honestly pretty funny Itchy and Scratchy cartoon gets no laughter out of him, nor does a prank he and Lisa pull on Homer. Marge herself feels that something's missing when she's hugging him when he goes to bed. So there's all these examples where I think the show is pointing to its audience hey, yes, we're corporeal people, but physical people, but yes, there is something to be said for, having some sort of soul or some sort of energy outside of the human person. At one point in the episode, Bart has kind of a surprisingly deep nightmare where all the kids in Springfield are getting to enjoy their time with their souls on the teeter-totters and in rowboats and things like that, but Bart is kind of missing out because he doesn't have one. And I think that's sort of pointing to the fact that, having some system of belief in life really is able to, I think, enhance people's experiences. I'm not saying there's only, one way to be a spiritual person, but I do feel like some belief in, things happen for a reason, and these kind of ideas really do help us get through our day-to-day lives and even enhance our lives. And after all of his toiling with his lack of a soul, at the end, of course, his sister Lisa is able to save the day. She rescues Bart by buying his soul back, and it's very, early Simpsons in the fact that it's pretty heartwarming and ends on a positive note, which I, of course, appreciated. So that whole storyline is happening, while at the same time, Uncle Moe's family feedback is in full swing, And that whole unhinged restaurant is just so entertaining to watch. Some of the best one-liners from this episode happen like one after the other in the family feed bag. Like a little girl's complaining to Unky Mo that her sody is too cold, so her teeth hurt. Like that whole scene is just so entertaining, even though I've seen it like multiple times in my life. So a lot of the humor in this episode definitely comes from Mo's family feed bag. So that was a really like appreciated brevity to the deeper side of this episode. So yeah, just in general, I really think that the funny subplot of Mo's restaurant mixes well with Bart's heady kind of soul journey he's on. And I think that really ends up making for a thought-provoking but sincerely hilarious episode. And for that reason, I really do consider this my favorite and, in fact, The Simpsons' best. I mean, it's just full of all these, like, random, super specific references. Like, again, that Shriner couch gag, or those little growing dinosaur sponge toys that kids have where Bart tries to get one to eat his sister to no avail. Or, like, the Alf Pogs that Milhouse ends up trading Bart's soul for. All of these, like, really specific references really drove home some of the humor for me. We also get a little bit of characterization of some of the other citizens of Springfield. Like, I think we meet Milhouse's granny in this episode for the first time. The comic book guy learns Bart's name, so there's a little bit of characterization there. That adds to the Simpsons lore, if you will. And then at the end of the episode, when me and my wife were watching it, we got why it was so entertaining, because the first names that pop up with the credits is Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein. This is the second episode, apparently, with the two of them as executive producers. And if you know of them at all, it makes perfect sense why they would be making such hits for Simpson episodes. They were the same duo behind the show Mission Hill, which is another one of my wife and I's favorite cartoons of all time. That duo certainly had a bit of alchemy going when they were pumping out all these golden shows in the mid to late 90s and early aughts. So when we saw their names, everything made perfect sense. And it's not just me who finds this to be one of the best Simpsons episodes. This is one of Nancy Cartwright's top 3 episodes. That's Bart himself. It's also loved by Matt Groening, and Yeardley Smith listed it as among her top 2 Simpsons episodes. So there you go. It's like Bart, Lisa, and the show's creator love this episode as much as I do. So it's like Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse coming out and saying what their favorite Disney movie is. I think that's a high praise. I love at the end how Bart is just able to hop in a rowboat with his soul and, row his way towards this weird Emerald City, land of salvation, or wherever he's heading. That again seemed like kind of an inter-religious kind of, land of plenty insert that audiences of a lot of different faiths can kind of relate to. So yeah, overall, I feel like it's a very entertaining episode. If you're a brand new Simpsons fan like my wife was just a few weeks ago, maybe this is a good one to start with. Or if you're trying to get someone else into the show, I don't think this one can hurt as far as giving them a good idea of what The Simpsons has to offer. If you haven't seen it in a while, I encourage you to go check it out. Season 7, Episode 4, Bart Sells His Soul. And I hope that was entertaining and educational. And I appreciate you watching. So have a good day.